Hi everyone, Jim Graywolf here. Those who know me know I'm in Sedona area now. You can see some of the red rocks behind me. I tried to record down by the creek a little while ago, but then when I played it back, I realized even I couldn't hear it. The water was so loud. So I'll put up some of those videos and pictures separately. I wanted to share some of the stories that are going on, since we need positive stories now, and that's where I am focusing back as I was trained so long ago. Earth medicine, listening to the earth, listening to the people coming together, creating. So, as I've allowed this thing to open again and invited others in, and I'll invite each one of you in to start sharing positive stories as well. Share about the beauty, the energy. I've noticed some changes in people I just run into. So the other day I was on Oak Creek, north of Sedona. Today I'm on the south end of Oak Creek. I was stopping for water. There's a wonderful natural spring there. A lot of people stop and fill their water bottles. I had my bottles and I had a friend of mine, Adrian's bottles from Phoenix, who had so wonderfully helped me move. He'd hauled all my things up from Phoenix to Sedona. And so I took all his water bottles. Didn't seem like a fair exchange, but he needed the water and he couldn't get up there. So anyway, I pulled in and it was getting a little cloudy. Fair amount of traffic in the canyon that day where they're doing some construction work, which seems to be an ongoing thing up the canyon north of Sedona on the way to Flagstaff. So I pulled in to where the spring was. And it was pretty crowded. I took the last space, so I was 4 or 5 cars away from the spring with a lot of 5-gallon bottles of mine and Adrian's and a lot of 1-gallon bottles. And with my knees, which are older than the rest of me these days, thanks to some arthritis, I was trying to think, how am I going to do this? But I started hauling some of the empty ones. Not too many people were at the spring at that point. They'd gone off to the creek, which is right nearby. And I started filling some of the bottles and putting them to the side. There's 2 spouts on this spring, and one really wasn't working well. And I played with a little and hit it and jostled it, and one was flowing beautifully, the other not so much. So another fellow walked up, a young fellow, and he's starting to fill his bottles, and I said, hey, if you want to just fill a couple, go ahead, because I have a lot of them here. And he goes, how come the other spout's not working? I said, I don't know. Let's try again. So for some reason, I started playing with the one that was working, and he put his hand over the one not working to kind of create suction. And then, boom, suddenly they were both spouting out. So we're just chuckling about it. Now we had both of them working. We're filling the bottles. We both, I think he probably had 10 bottles. I must have had 20. They filled my car. But anyway, as this was going on, there was a woman in a small camper. And she was wondering how good the water was, how do we use it. So we started chatting with her. And then a family came up, several children. They were very happy to say hello to my dogs who were with me. So they actually took my dogs off on leashes towards the creek. Once they got them to the creek, they could let them off the leash if they wished. And the mom was saying, oh, this is great. You know, our dogs are home, and they were missing our dogs. And I said, well, they're welcome to play with mine. So we were working on this little bit of community almost, circle. And then some rain started, just a trickle at first. We had someone much older than me, a couple, who pulled in. Probably, oh man, late 80s at least, or they seemed like it. They were having trouble even getting out of their vehicle and walking over to the spring, and they just had plastic mugs to fill for themselves. So a couple of us helped them get to the spring. They wanted to come to the spring and fill the mugs themselves. And so we helped them facilitate that. And they started talking about and telling us about all the springs that used to be up here on the north end of the Rock Creek. So wonderful stories. Now the rain's getting a little heavier. Some other people were gathering. So we had the family, mother and dad, 2 children, off with my dogs. We had this elderly couple. We had me without my dogs, but with a lot of bottles. We had this other young man who was filling all of his bottles. And we had another young couple who had shown up. So as we were doing this, the rain started to come down. And I decided to just stay there. And so did several of the other people. Just stand in the rain and fill the bottles. The mother of the 2 children decided to get her children inside of their van. She was a little worried about lightning, although it wasn't that kind of storm. That's understandable. So she did that. My dogs went in with them. They thought it was exciting. And we started creating the system. It seems that the older couple, I'll say the infirm couple, I'm in the older group now too. They had a lot of empty bottles, but they were not going to fill them because they knew they couldn't do it themselves. And so that the young man, both young men who were there, went to their vehicle and started hauling their jugs back. And then they took mine and started hauling them up to my car full, which was wonderful because it's hard on my knees. You have to climb up a little embankment, then you have to carry these things, 4 or 5 car lengths. Doesn't sound like much when you're younger, but when your knees get older, it's a lot. So they were doing that. I was filling the jugs, enjoying the rain. I went over and to see how my dogs were doing. They were fine. And so the children were asking me about the dogs. So I started doing some storytelling with the kids who were there. Another group had come with 3 young kids at the same time. So we invited them over. The rain had lessened a bit by now, so we went out into the light rain. And I shared some stories of the area. This older couple that was there, they'd been in the area for 40-some years, I think they said. They were sharing stories of the area itself. Meanwhile, others were carrying the jugs, others were filling the jugs. And then in a while, I went back to filling jugs while the older couple told more stories to the young ones. There was just a good sense of we were getting this all done together. Maybe, I don't know, I didn't count. What's that, a dozen people? Maybe a little more. We were probably there maybe 45 minutes, maybe more. And then the rain really started coming down. So I went with my dogs towards the creek. Several of the people came along, and we decided to sit on the banks of the creek as the rain poured down, which was awesome. The energy was amazing. By now, all the jugs had been filled. Everybody's car was refilled with jugs. The one young couple who were there actually turned out to be from Utah on their way to California. And they wanted to be in Sedona a while. But they were moving to the coast. They thought that's where they needed to be. So after maybe 45 minutes, maybe a little more than that, we all went back to our vehicles. We all said goodbye. There was handshaking, hugging. The kids were just thrilled. They wanted to go off once more with my dogs for a few minutes. So I said, sure, if it's okay with your parents, and it was. And then we left. And as I drove down the canyon in the rain, I was just thinking, what an incredible hour of the day for all of us, and exactly how it's supposed to work, and often doesn't. But I think it's exactly the sort of things we have to do. Once again, it was water that pulled it together. Water is such a critical element right now, but all of Earth is critical. This is the time for Earth medicine. That was Earth medicine. Water pulled us together. The dogs, creatures of the earth, took the children and took care of them for a while. We walked on the soil. We enjoyed the rocks. I collected 2 rocks to bring with me after asking permission of the rocks. And then we all left. It was incredible. Listening to the earth. This is the time for the earth to lead, not us. We need to listen. We need to act in harmony with our mother. Pay attention, apply earth medicine, and we'll get through this. So that's all for now. More of this will be coming. I invite you all to share your stories. Allow these wonderful moments to happen now. Feel the energy, share the stories. So from Sedona, where I will be now for some time, I think, I say aho from the Red Wax. I say I am you and you are me. I say create community, unite, come together, all of us. Be well.